Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Thursday morning out there. Hope we're all having a good one so far. We got a video for you. I know it's been a while. I do apologize. Unfortunately, as I'm sure you can imagine, being a college student as well as having a job and plenty of other extracurricular activities can sometimes get in the way of having a little bit more fun here on the YouTube side of things. So I do apologize about that, but I made sure to get up early this morning. I had to set 4 alarms, so I actually had the motivation to do it. But nonetheless, here we are, and I've got a pretty big update for you actually on a lot going into this weekend, including some pretty unsettled weather out into the plains as well as some tropical trouble in the East Coast. So again, we're going to break all that down for you in this video. Now, if you haven't already subscribed, definitely consider doing so and hit that like button, as that does help out the channel a lot. And let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Even if you're a regular, let me know what you're seeing out there and how your week has been, because we haven't had the chance to talk in a while just due to how busy I have been. With that said, though, I think that's pretty much all the housekeeping things. Let's go ahead and get into that forecast. So taking a look currently at the United States here, sun beginning to rise over the eastern United States already and crossing the Mississippi as we speak. And again, we've got a couple things that we're monitoring out here. So as for the East Coast, we've had this big area of high pressure really dominating the pattern over the past couple of days, but that is going to change for some folks going into this weekend as this kind of elongated trough that got cut off from that cold front we had a couple of days ago is just stuck out over the off the southeast coastline, and that is going to likely spin up a tropical or subtropical system over the next couple of days before eventually working its way into eastern North Carolina and up the eastern seaboard a bit as well going into this weekend. So that's going to bring some pretty gusty conditions, some very rainy conditions as well as we go over the next couple of days. Now, back west, we have a pretty impressive low pressure system out here over Oregon and Idaho currently. That is eventually going to cross the Rocky Mountains and bring the chance for some pretty widespread severe weather this weekend out here into the Great Plains, much like if we were to see in May, but this time in September. And often we see this once we get into fall, we get kind of a second severe weather season in the United States, and that is definitely going to unfold over the next couple of days, starting out into the plains with that low pressure system. So monitoring all of that this morning. As for current radar, again, off kind of here in the East Coast, things are relatively nice, a little different for some other folks. So again, all dry from Maine all the way down kind of towards the Carolinas, where we then begin to hit some scattered showers and storms into South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida this morning. Again, all of that due to this elongated area or this troughing of low pressure that we're seeing off the southeastern coastline, allowing some of those storms to fire up and even work their way inland. Now, over Illinois this morning, we do have a bit of a short wave here, or just kind of a kink in that high pressure that is dominating much of the East Coast, and that is also allowing a pretty widespread area of some showers here into eastern Illinois this morning. But as we go through this afternoon, expect that to kind of fall apart a little bit and begin to weaken. We also have another kind of area of energy or another short wave back out here towards the Dakotas. That is leading to some showers up into North Dakota, Minnesota, as well as down into South Dakota and Nebraska. But the big story maker out west, again, is this big area of low pressure currently centered kind of between Oregon and Idaho here, continuing to spin away, and that is going to bring again some showers and storms and even some snow out into the Rocky Mountains, but more importantly some severe weather into the Great Plains as we go over the next couple of days. So talking about that, starting today, we have that first chance of severe weather. Again, this isn't going to be directly associated with the low pressure out here, but it's still, of course, important to talk about. So kind of right along the Red River Valley today, right there just north of Dallas, Texas, we got a pretty good shot at some strong storms this evening, but also a pretty big area from the Texas-New Mexico border all the way up towards South Dakota, having the chance of some strong storms as well this afternoon and evening. And again, all hazards are on the table today, from strong winds, hail, and even tornadoes. And that threat continues into tomorrow into areas of Nebraska, South Dakota, and Kansas before we get into our Saturday, and we have an even more widespread area of severe weather, and we'll talk about that here in just a moment. But before we get there, let's kind of go ahead and zoom in here to the United States, or the eastern United States, I should add, and I'm going to go ahead and move my camera out of the way so I'm not blocking anybody's view here of some of those places that will be impacted by some of that severe weather today. So let's go ahead and move this ahead into time. Again, the big story right now is just this high pressure continuing to dominate the pattern, and going into the early morning hours of today, that will continue. Very nice dry conditions for much of the East Coast, outside of a couple of those showers working their way into the low country of South Carolina associated with that low pressure off the coast. Now, as we get into this afternoon, we'll move this ahead to about 2, 3, 4 o'clock today. Again, expect still some showers possible here along the coastline of South Carolina, Georgia, and even Florida there as that low pressure continues to kind of get its act together this afternoon. But the other big story this afternoon and evening will just be those strong storms that fire off, likely here again right along the Red River Valley into Oklahoma and Texas, but also, again, anywhere from New Mexico up towards Nebraska having the chance at some of those stronger storms this afternoon. And we'll likely see some pretty impressive structure out of these storms as well. So very spring-like storms out there going into this afternoon. Before going into this evening, those storms continue to march east before this general trend occurs where, due to this high pressure's placement, any storms back out into the plains kind of hit this barrier once they get towards the Mississippi River and kind of just fizzle out and dry out due to this high pressure, allowing that sinking motion in the atmosphere as well as just drier air in general, helping to kind of keep that moisture back out towards the plains. So definitely watching that. But the bigger story tomorrow afternoon, and this is going into tomorrow morning, as you'll notice, we've got a pretty well-defined area of low pressure at this point off the southeast coastline, and that will be getting ready to work its way inland into North Carolina going into Friday evening and into early Saturday. So I think Friday afternoon is going to be honestly a very fall-like feeling day in the Atlantic, and you can note that just due to these kind of ridging bars coming off of this high pressure into the mid-Atlantic, that's going to supply some cool, dry air. That combined with this low pressure swinging in plenty of energy off the Atlantic, it's going to be quite a windy day in the mid-Atlantic tomorrow, likely a pretty cloudy day as well. So going to be one of those days where the wind is getting pretty high up there. Temperatures likely going to be stuck into the 60s and 70s, definitely some 80s for folks as well tomorrow afternoon for a lot of people, and that will continue into Saturday as this low pressure finally works its way inland. So Friday afternoon, expect that rain to really pick up into eastern North Carolina and South Carolina tomorrow. But while that's ongoing, again, another area of severe weather possible tomorrow we talked about back up into Nebraska and the Dakotas, and you'll notice as we go into tomorrow evening, those storms fire off that way, and again, all hazards possible with those, including large hail, damaging winds, and even a couple tornadoes possible as well. And while all that's ongoing into the early morning hours of Saturday, we're likely going to get landfall of what could potentially be a tropical system here into the Carolina coastline. So definitely watching all of that. Alrighty, so another thing I want to show you here is the dew point map. Again, this afternoon, very comfortable dew points, only getting into the 50s, even 40s in the northeast for many folks here in the East Coast, although some 60s back towards the Ohio River Valley, and definitely higher dew points back down towards the Great Plains where we have that severe weather threat this afternoon. Going into tomorrow afternoon, those dew points, again, I think it's going to be a very nice fall-like day for the mid-Atlantic tomorrow, as we're going to have some combined flow from high pressure as well as low pressure really funneling in that dry air, especially the Western Carolinas, Western Virginia, West Virginia itself. Going to be a really nice day tomorrow in terms of how comfortable it is outside, although definitely could be getting a bit gusty at times for a lot of folks. And going into Saturday, that will continue depending on what side of that low pressure system you're on. Out here into the Outer Banks of North Carolina, it could be very muggy, even having a bit of a severe weather threat on Saturday, while areas west of there, kind of down the spine of the Appalachians, again, just a beautiful fall-like day with likely not too much rain that far west, as well as just really nice dew points and even kind of nice breeze in the air. So some folks are actually really going to benefit from very nice weather from this unsettled weather, funnily enough, here in the southeast. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and zoom this out a little bit. Again, obviously the big story is that low pressure off the southeast coastline, landfall of whatever that is, whether it be tropical or subtropical, likely early Saturday, and that will continue to work up the east coast, and we'll zoom in on that here again in a moment. But the bigger story, I think, Saturday in terms of dangerous weather is going to be what is a very potent low pressure system coming out of the Rockies, and this will park itself kind of in the Dakotas by the time we get to Saturday afternoon, and that combined with plenty of warm air advection out of the Gulf, we're going to have a very spring-like setup and the chance for some very strong storms Saturday afternoon. So I'm quite concerned about this, and you'll notice here on our latest European model, and just look at this line of strong to severe storms extending all the way down from Texas and Oklahoma all the way back towards Minnesota and the Dakotas. So again, quite concerned about that. Could see some very strong storms, including strong tornadoes on Saturday afternoon. So just to look at the latest risk outline for that. Again, this is what we are currently seeing. Storm Prediction Center has an area, like I kind of talked about, all the way from Dallas, all the way back towards Minneapolis, having the chance of strong to severe storms Saturday afternoon. So definitely going to watch that. I just realized I got to move my picture back over, and might have actually been blocking some of the Mid-Atlantic on that last one. Maybe not. But either way, we're going to zoom in on that here in a second anyway. So Anyway, sorry about that. Okay, so speaking of that all, let's go ahead and zoom in on this kind of storm system that we're expecting in the East Coast this weekend, and who's going to see rain, who's going to see maybe a little bit of severe weather, and who's just going to see kind of nice weather. So our latest NAM model here, I think, does a pretty good job with this storm system. Again, rain starting as early as tomorrow afternoon in eastern North Carolina and South Carolina, and even southeastern Virginia here into the Hampton Roads area, as well as the Norfolk area. So again, expect a pretty breezy day tomorrow for much of the mid-Atlantic and southeast, as we're going to have a pretty tight gradient here, or just where these isobars are getting kind of close to each other due to kind of this low pressure and high pressure sandwiching each other together, definitely leading to quite a strong pressure gradient. So again, starting tomorrow afternoon, not expecting any severe weather in the southeast tomorrow afternoon, just due to the placement of this and just kind of the thermodynamics not quite being there. Now, going into overnight Friday into Saturday is whenever this likely makes landfall, or early Saturday morning, and that's whenever that rain shield will also begin to kind of expand northward back towards Maryland and the I-95 corridor from Boston all the way down towards Baltimore. So again, a lot of people going to see rain out of this. Now, as for the severe weather threat, I think the highest chance of that likely comes Saturday afternoon here into the Outer Banks of North Carolina, maybe even into the Delmarva a little bit, as we should get a little bit of dry air wrapping around this system. That will help to bring some breaks in the clouds. Also, with some of that southerly flow off of the Atlantic, could bring up those dew points, could definitely see some severe weather out of that, including the threat of a couple weak tornadoes there, again, into the Outer Banks, into eastern North Carolina, and up into the Delmarva on Saturday afternoon. Before going into Saturday overnight and Sunday, the system begins to weaken, although still some scattered showers through much of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic on Sunday afternoon. Now, as for weekend plans, Saturday, honestly, it's a bit of a tough forecast with these tropical systems, just because it's either raining or it's not. It's not really somewhere where we see scattered rain showers. It's usually a pretty fine cutoff. What I would say is, if you're kind of east of the I-77 corridor here, I think Saturday and even Friday afternoon and evening likely looks pretty wet. If you're kind of west of there, back towards the western Carolinas, Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia, honestly, it doesn't look to be all that bad this weekend. You might not even see a drop of rain at all. So again, east of I-95, definitely going to see rain. East of I-77, likely going to see rain. West of there, your chances look a little bit nicer for overall a pretty nice weekend, although again, a bit cool and a tad windy as well. So going into tomorrow afternoon, the chance for some excessive rainfall, again, especially into eastern North Carolina and kind of the Myrtle Beach area of South Carolina as that rain begins to move ashore. Going into tomorrow afternoon and evening. Before Saturday, that threat then moves up along the I-95 corridor from Virginia all the way back towards Boston, having the chance at some excessive rainfall for our Saturday afternoon. So definitely watching out for that. Whenever we say excessive rainfall, how much are we talking about? And again, this map also does a great job of showing that extreme cutoff I was talking about and who's going to see rain and who is not. Again, eastern North Carolina, southeastern Virginia, and kind of up the eastern seaboard to New York, I think has the best chance of seeing the most rainfall, likely 2 to 4, maybe even a couple places getting about 5 or 6 inches of rain out of this system. But as you go west of there, that cutoff is going to be a very fine line. A place like Charlotte, tough forecast. Same thing for Columbia, South Carolina, tough forecast. You might not see a drop of rain at all, but if this shifts just a little bit further west, you could see a good inch or two. So again, I think right now back towards Asheville, Greenville, Spartanburg, up towards eastern Tennessee, West Virginia, Ohio, it looks pretty good this weekend. But once you slowly start working east towards the eastern seaboard, that chance of rain continues to increase before by the time you actually hit the East Coast, you're just about definitely going to see a pretty widespread kind of rainy weekend, especially Saturday for most folks. Alrighty, so let's talk about behind this system a little bit and what we're expecting afterwards, and how comfortable is it is September, sorry. How comfortable is the end of September going to be? So moving this ahead, again, this weekend, it's going to be a very fine line here in the East Coast. So we'll actually start out in the plains. This weekend out on the plains, again, looks pretty summer-like or spring-like, very muggy. All of that just due to the flow around this high pressure, bringing some pretty strong winds out of the Gulf, and that is going to help to fuel the chance for those strong storms this weekend as well. As for the East Coast, again, it's going to be a real 50-50 depending on where you're at. Honestly, I think it's going to be gorgeous, at least for the kind of weather I like, along the Appalachian chain this weekend. Likely cloudy, but very cool, very dry, and a bit breezy as well, so a very fall-like weekend for you folks. As for the small amount of people that are going to be on the east side of this low pressure system, again, it's going to be quite muggy and rainy with even the chance of some storms as that low pressure moves inland. But once this low kind of clears out and gets back on out of here, back into the Atlantic, Atlantic early next week. It looks to stay pretty nice for most of us in the East Coast, although still muggy down into the Great Plains and especially down towards Texas and Louisiana. But going into next week, we could get another, storm system, potentially a potent one, that tries to work east and could once again bring some of that unstable and higher dew points back into the East Coast. We'll just have to watch that, though. It's pretty far from now. But honestly, the next 7 days for most folks looks really nice in terms of that comfortability scale outside. Alright, so quickly talking about the tropics, currently Hurricane Nigel, not really a problem for anybody. He's likely going to curve out towards Greenland, actually, and eventually here become a post-tropical cyclone. The area off the southeast coastline got about a 40 to 50% chance of developing into a named tropical system currently. Likely, honestly, those chances to be bumped up this afternoon, but we talked about the impacts from that. Definitely some breezy conditions, but honestly, I think the rainfall will be more of a impact compared to how breezy it's going to be. Likely getting up into some tropical storm gusts, though, for a lot of folks this weekend. As for this big area out into the Atlantic, this will definitely be one we need to watch and has a high chance of developing. The good news is, as of right now, most of our models here curve this thing out to sea and, don't cause any problems for anybody. But we'll definitely have to watch the trends here. This is just the Euro ensemble, so I actually did not check the GFS ensemble, so we can definitely check that. Again, a little bit of a different story here with the GFS, but overall, still, most of these members curve this out to sea eventually. Of course, though, as we saw with Hurricane Lee, everyone wrote that off as a fish storm and ended up impacting folks up into New England pretty well. So whenever we're this far out, definitely got to watch the trends. But right now, not too much of a threat to land, and if we definitely trend towards that, we got plenty of time to watch it. And of course, we definitely will do that for you. Alrighty, well, I think that's all I've got for you on this Thursday. Again, I apologize. I think it's been a solid week since I put a video out, but unfortunately, I've been working hard in university trying to get that degree so I can do this for real one day, hopefully. With that said, though, again, hope you have a great rest of your Thursday. I'll definitely try my best to get a video out tomorrow, although I will not have one out this weekend, as I'll actually be back home for the weekend, away from all my fancy camera equipment, if you will. So if I don't get one out tomorrow, I'll definitely get one back out on Monday for you, since I don't work on Monday. So yeah, I think that's really all I've got for you today. Again, have a great rest of your Thursday. Have a great start to your Friday tomorrow, and try to stay dry out there this weekend, and definitely have a way to get those warnings if you're out in the plains. With that said, though, again, have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.